Hello, welcome to our Alumni Ask Me Anything series as part of our 90th anniversary celebration of the School of Information and Library Science. My name is Lori Haight and I serve as the Career Services Coordinator, and today we have Wei Gao joining us. We have collected some questions, but I'd like to remind our audience that there is an additional way you can submit a question, and we will get to as many of them as we can in the time that we have together. If you would like to submit a question, please use the Q&A and we'll try to incorporate them into our conversation. So welcome, Wei. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me here.
So we'll go ahead and get started. We included a brief bio in the registration for this event, but can you tell us how you were first drawn to working with technology?
Sure. Very happy to be here and meet everyone. For me, I consider myself incredibly lucky to have found my passion at SILS of all places. So I'm a first-gen immigrant. I was born and raised in China, mainland China. And my undergraduate degree was actually in finance. And that was not chosen by me, it was picked by my parents. And back in China, really there were these majors that are the most popular majors. The best students would choose them because they have best pay, you can find jobs. In my years, it was either finance or I was just finance, biology, or EE, electrical engineering. And so that's how I picked finance. When I came to the US, I was able to make my own choices. And so I picked information science. Then that has started a really lifelong journey about technology, about data, intelligence, insights. How can we leverage what's in the data to really help the business with the better decision-making? So really it is, making my own choices and having the luck to be able to choose the SILS as a destination.
That's great, thank you. We have students join SILS every year who are thinking about entrepreneurial adventures for their future. Can you share how you evaluate opportunities that have the potential to be the next big thing?
I felt like this is so timely because I would have felt completely unqualified to answer the question. But for everyone's information, I worked at Amazon for 16 years, but about 3 months ago, I left and then joined a startup company. I'll share a little bit just how I have been evaluating not only at Amazon, but this kind of decision. When I look back at my life and career and how I made my decisions, it's very much driven by curiosity. So I had a strong curiosity early on, really fostered by my parents. I remember my mom reading to me when I was just a toddler. I learned to read myself at a very young age. And then that, the reading has become this also lifelong passion that just kind of brought the entire whole new world to me. I also remember when I was a kid, we walk a lot. We spent a lot of time waiting for public transportation. And my mom was always talking to me. She was always talking about a variety of topics. She was just a factory worker. She only graduated middle school due to Cultural Revolution in China. But she has, this curiosity. She would look at a tree and then she can identify all sorts of plants. And, it's just her own passion. And that sort of helped me to develop my own kind of this pursuit of curiosity and learning. At Amazon for 16 years, I really made my decision to always want to learn new things. And then I would change my project or change my team, really trying to keep up that level of learning. And so for me, I started at Amazon working in the e-commerce platform where we run this projects end to end. This is 2005. It's a really a vantage point to see how the entire thing works. After a few years, I changed to the Kindle team. And the reason I made that change is to, okay, what else can I learn? I have run the largest projects at Amazon. And so then I was like, okay, all I have run is software project. How do I, learn about hardware development? Sort of more complexity, more variety. So that's why I went to Kindle. And that really taught me the hardware development cycle is so different from the software development cycle. It's much more rigid. And so the risk profile is very different. I learned to work with supply chain. I learned to work with go-to-market. I learned that there's all these regulations, legal, tax, and also regulatory when you're trying to sell a device in so many different countries. In 2010, I moved to supply chain. I always knew I wanted to work in supply chain before I left Amazon, because I knew supply chain is one of the biggest reasons that Amazon was able to weather so many challenges and then have a healthy margin, was able to offer the lowest prices to customers. And so that was really the decision that to work in that field where Amazon is one of the best in the industry. My choice to go to Hopin are a few things. One is I really identified with the vision and mission of Hopin. So Hopin is an event management company, and then they provide immersive experience for virtual, hybrid, and on-site events. I really identified that the mission in this overall larger community or industry to make the virtual experience a better experience. To me, that's solving for the future. There's a lot of challenges there. I love to put the best mind in solving for that. The second piece I evaluated is, how strong is the founding team? And so I met the founder and the leadership team. The founder is very young. I think he's, in his late 20s, but he is very ambitious, a great, outstanding product leader, and he has very, very low ego. Actually, one of the core values of Hopin is no ego, right? So I can see, often the founders are quite opinionated. They have to, to be successful, but you have to also have an open mind. And then, so I look at the founder, the leadership team is very senior. I can see that they can scale with the company. And then the third thing is I look at the culture. As I said, I think the founder and leadership team is a big part of the culture already. But this is a remote first company. It's fully virtual. We have people in 40 plus countries. And I just loved how this diversity and then inclusiveness is in the daily culture, right? It's not just a talk. We see this every day in our Slack channels. You're going to be very conscious of people living in different time zones, different countries, right? We're so spread. So I really like that. The last is product. So I would never advise someone to go to, especially a startup company or starting your own, if you're not passionate about the product, right? So for the product itself, I felt such an intersection of SaaS and consumer. My 16 years at Amazon is mostly consumer. So the SaaS piece really satisfied my learning desire, my curiosity to learn about a new space, to learn about a new business model. But at the end of the day, this is a live event. Think of it as a wedding. It has to be perfect, right? So the attendee experience is as important as the organizer experience. And so that is, to me, is this unique case that is the intersection of both. So that is really attractive to me. But in the end, there are people who are pinging me to say, hey, I want to join Hopin. What do you think? I would always say, don't join a startup company because you think it's a quick exit, right? They may go IPO in a couple of years. Really only join if you're truly passionate about what they're doing. As a part of the startup company, we cannot afford to hire people who are not passionate about what we do.
Thank you. Students want to know about how to balance their technical expertise with their interpersonal skills, such as problem solving and communication skills. What would your advice be on that balance between the two?
It's a great question. Obviously, when we screen candidates, whether that's a corporate like Amazon or startup at Hopin, we look at both, right? So what I see is your hard skills are what we call hard skills, your technical skills, or depending on the profession you do, that the main expertise to me is the foundation. It's the base. You want to cover your base. Right? Your base has to be strong, sturdy stepping stone for you. However, what I consider to be successful, to go up and beyond in your career and in your life are what people may call interpersonal skills, they may call leadership skills, right? I think those are so important because that's how you make decisions as a human being, as an employee or as a leader. That's how you prioritize the limited resources, whether that's your time, your teammates' time, the company's investment. It determines how you interact with people. Are you a good listener? Can you drive consensus, right? A lot of those things are just so critical, and they happen on a daily basis, from a very, very small thing to a big decision. I personally have found helpful to, when you join a company, they already have a set of core values or a set of principles, right? At Amazon, we have 14 leadership principles. What I found super helpful is to actually really, put yourself in the middle of those principles, trying to really understand them, practice them, observe how others practice them. And those are one of the best ways to actually develop these soft skills. And then you develop them within context with concrete examples that really help you to see how people actually are able to practice them successfully. And every company is different, right? At Amazon, we put so much effort to actually use those principles in all of our decision making. They're not just a paper we print out and then we kind of tape on a wall. We use it a lot, right? Customer obsession, that's number one. And then we have ownership, we have bias for action, dive deep, think big. There's just a number of these things. And here's a joke. My husband worked at Amazon also for a number of years, right? So from time to time, we'll, look at our kids, and then we couldn't help but use these leadership principles to talk to our kids, and then we kind of laugh at it. It was like, oh my God, this is so ingrained now in how we think that we use it in life. But that's totally fine, because those are good general rules of life that make you a better person everywhere you go.
Yes, that's hysterical with the parenting. That's funny how it just, because it's good things, then you just ingrain it into everything you do. A follow-up question to that is, while your new position is in the C-suite, what would you recommend people prioritize when starting any type of new role in terms of adjusting to the organization, kind of going along with what people are doing?
Yeah, learning, learn and learn. Have some patience, give yourself some space. So have the humility and modesty to just, but also the psychological safety net to just learn. It's okay to not know everything, and maybe not to know anything, and just ask questions, ask a lot of questions. Diversify how you learn. We all have our, optimal way of learning, but you should kind of expose yourself to a diversified way of learning, reading wiki, talking to people one-on-one, attend design reviews or technical reviews, business reviews, read on industry news to get your general context. If you don't understand why certain decisions were made, ask, try to understand how this company operates, what are their leading principles, what are people's thought process. Learn from your managers, learn from your peers, learn from people who work for you. As you go through your career, you will learn a lot more and more from people who actually work for you than the people you work for, because there are usually more people who work for you than the one person you report to, right? It's reverse learning is equally important.
Thank you. You've become involved in several boards as well as affinity groups throughout your career. Can you talk about why it's important to spend your time giving back in these ways?
That's a great question. I actually don't consider myself a very active in public service. I started in recent years. And, there's just a lot of reasons why, the work, the culturally where we grew up, not really encouraging to public service. I love how here it's very different. I see my kids are much more public service active. But for me, maybe this goes back to learning a bit. Obviously, I want to give back. But again, I think there's also something in that for me, which is a big learning journey for me to see how I can apply everything I've learned to a different setting, and then see if I can make that organization a lot more successful. How do I need to adjust my approach or solution based on the situation given? And so my personal sort of focus areas in the volunteer work has been STEM education, and then DEI initiatives with a focus on Asian American causes. And I think those are actually the two main ones. There's a third one that now that I've left Amazon, I started to get involved, which is around supply chain, supply chain talent development, supply chain thinking ahead for what the next generation of supply chain needs are, and then how can we grow those supply chain leaders that are really fit for those needs. And then, I would also say, doing this work make you a better person, make you a better leader, a better executive. I'm only starting my journey on for-profit board opportunities. Amazon doesn't allow us to sit on for-profit company boards. Now that I have left, I have several people who have reached out. Last year, I went through a 6-month training called Onboarding Women. This is part of a national, really movement to get more women representation to board. Through that, and then my own network, I've talked to a lot of people, men and women, who have held board positions. One theme they told me, a shared theme, is they said, being a board member made me a better executive, right? So seeing that variety of business cases, dealing with different situations, being able to operate as a board member, give you a new perspective, operating as a operational leader at your company. And so I consider all of these things are new experiences, shared experiences. I want to give back. Making an impact definitely is self-fulfilling. And then being able to see how the next generation can come up with better access, better information. But at the end of the day, this is all about experience, just as Hopin is too, right? It's about bringing people together, giving them a better way to share experiences. That's a big thing for me.
Thank you. One of our guests asked, what skills and knowledge did you gain from SILS that allowed you to have such success in the workforce? And what advice would you give to students who are graduating soon, like skills that are desired by companies? We touched on some of this earlier, but.
Yeah, I remember at SILS, we, as students, we were taught to not just, we were taught a set of skills, right? Database skills. Back in my days, I remember skills of making websites, skill like code fusion, a few languages, probably not used today. But we also taught students like research methods. We taught students, information organization, information insights. The key thing that stayed with me is, again, you have the foundation of how to process the information, how to represent the information. But more importantly is that next layer, next step up, which is insights, right? The insights, and then what is this information used for? And how can you present, organize, analyze information in a way that are truly making an impact for the business or customer outcome you want to achieve. And so the data and the raw data itself is the foundation, but it's almost like less interesting, less useful. In this world, compared to 2 decades ago at SILS, right, obviously a lot more information, potentially more information available. So information by itself is not what we need. The intelligence on top of that information is what we need. And I think SILS has this unique position, is this is not your technical professional school, right? This is a school that really connects the human piece, the society piece, the information piece. And then the technique is really a way, a means to get there, is to connect these dots and then really generate the unique insights to push things forward across multiple dimensions. I think that's what makes SILS unique. This is not about learn a programming language, learn a few regression models, hit a button, run something, present the results. It's so much more than that.
Thank you. You and I have had conversations about how important it is for students to have access to mentors and mentoring while in school. What are some things that you think mentors can offer students to help them move forward in their careers?
Good question. I'm very passionate about mentorship. And I think the first thing I always say to my mentee is this mentorship is a mentee-driven relationship. And I know this is challenging sometimes for our students, especially if their mentors are a lot senior than they are, but truly remember, it's a mentee-driven relationship. If you don't reach out, if you're not organized, you're not thoughtful about what you want, that makes the relationship a lot less effective. And so that's number one. Number two is to be clear about what you need help on, right? Even if you don't know, be clear about what you don't know. And then your mentor can potentially help you or ask a set of questions to probe and help you figure out where you need the most help, right? And so this is true at work too. When people say, I need a mentor, do you have a recommendation? That my first question is, what do you need, right? Do you need someone to help you hone your domain expertise, right? Who is great, who is the best machine learning scientist out there, or best business salespeople out there? Or are you looking for someone to help you hone your personal skills? Meaning you work in a situation where you feels like you're struggling with driving alignment, then you may want to talk to someone who have done that before. And so be clear about what you need. The third one is find the mentor that is the right fit for you, not the most senior person you can get. I think this is very important. Often people are looking for mentors that, there are several skip levels, ahead. Again, depending on what you want, what you want is probably someone who have had similar experiences, someone who's still reasonably close to what you do, so they understand the context and they can give you, reasonable and actionable advice, right? So I would be terrible to mentor a junior software engineer these days if it's about how they can do better code check-ins, how they would do, better code comments. I have no idea, honestly. I'm so far from my company's basic sort of engineering hygiene right now at my position. And then the last one, I think I lost track of my last mentor thought. I think the last one is, it's okay to have multiple mentors. Often people think they will have one, because your needs are different. So you can have multiple mentors. That's totally fine. Manage your time, manage your agenda with those mentors. Before we move on from this topic, I also want to add, a very interesting experience I have had, and I started implementing in my organization at Amazon, was this reverse mentorship. I actually heard about the case study at the Grace Hopper conference. For those of you who don't know, that's the largest women in computing conference. I heard at the Grace Hopper conference a few years ago in a workshop with fellow executives. And one of the companies presented their reverse mentorship sort of program that I found super interesting. The case study they presented is around DEI. So they have, diversity employees actually reverse mentoring their executives. And so they find people who a very open, honest, transparent, trusting on both ends. And so the employee in the organization could give feedback to the executive, because often they are not aware, right? It's not they did something on purpose, it was just not these unconscious bias behaviors. And so I thought that was a great idea, and I actually implemented at my own organization. And I again, like everything, reverse learning, reverse mentorship, they're all great. It's not really just one way.
That's great advice on mentoring. Thank you. We've just lived through the last 20 months of a pandemic, and there's been disruptions in lots of things. But one of the things that we see is that students' experiences outside of the classrooms have been impacted. And it's starting to get a little bit better if more people could convert to a remote experience. But do you have any advice for students who are trying to add to their skill set and may have lost a year of not being able to have some experiences outside of the classroom? Have you seen any creative ways people have been building their skill sets in this time?
Ooh, this is a hard one. I think I would not pretend that I have a perfect answer. I think all of us have been making our own adjustments along the way. And so personally, I've seen my two boys who are now 12 and 13 doing remote learning for over a year. My younger one, we actually homeschooled him for a year, thanks to my husband. But we have our own sort of takeaways, right? I saw how for my younger son to be homeschooled, how he struggled initially, but then really loved that freedom. Now he's back to the local public school, and then he would say, "Oh my God, I'm in school so long, I don't have enough of my time." I think he actually started to like the ownership of his time, right? He does his work well. He got a lot of time to himself. So it's really a lot of, this is part of the reason why I'm not so interested in any initiatives that are making this virtual interaction, virtual learning a better setup. I've also mentored interns during this time who have never met their teams in person, right? And have to do the ramp up virtually. I would just say, I think you have to lean over communication in the remote world, right? To stay connected to people. The second is, now that we're almost open, pretty open now. And then my work now is fully virtual. I'm intentional in creating face-to-face, sort of that in-person interactions. And so every week, at least like twice a week, I would meet with my ex-colleagues or friends in person. And so to try to really balance that in-person interaction with remote learning. And I think remote learning, this remote interaction, have also opened people's mind on what we can do remotely, right? There's a lot of the ed tech, education technology companies have thrived during this time. A lot of the collaboration software have thrived during this time. A lot of experienced companies like Hopin have thrived during this time. And so having that keep that open mind, and then really realize a lot of things you can do virtually. And I think many will probably stay virtually or hybrid even after we pass the pandemic entirely. And then I think the last thing I would just say, we are human beings. We wanted to be together. And so when we have the opportunity to be together, leverage that really well. As example, at Amazon, we used to do business travels in order to do executive reviews. So we'll go where a team is, and when we're there, it's all work, and it's actually all business meetings. Even before I left Amazon, we have already discussed, we want to change that once the travel opens up again, is we would travel more for that interpersonal, that interactions. We'll travel more for in-person one-on-ones, team gatherings, team events, because we realize we can do these meetings virtually. It's fine. Most of them are fine. We should spend the time in person to get to know our team better, get to know as a person better. I don't know if I answered your question, to be honest.
No, yes.
It's sharing. Yeah.
No, I think those are all great things to consider. Thank you. Well, our time has come to an end, and I want to thank you again on behalf of SILS for spending time with us today. And it was great to have this conversation. So thank you very much.
Again, thank you for having me. Bye.
Bye-bye.